Okay, QuadEq2 test review. Number 1 is simplifying the square root of 112. So we know that we're going to do our factor tree. And I'm always going to start with my smaller prime numbers. I know 2 goes into 112. If we struggle with that, we can divide if my keyboard works. There we go. And I get 56. I know 2 goes into 56. 28 times. 2 goes into 28. 14 times, and then 2 goes into 14 7 times. 7 is prime, so we're done with our factor tree. So knowing that, remember, it's a square root, so we want pairs of 2, or not pairs of 2, 2 that match. So there's 2 2s, there's 2 2s, and then there is no pair for the 7, so that's our leftover. I made it look like a 1. That's a 7. Okay, so knowing that, remember, we're going to take out what we circled. We took out a 2. Okay, we're going to take out another 2, and then our leftovers go inside of our square root symbol. And then remember, this is a factor tree. So if we have multiple on the outside or multiple on the inside, we multiply them. 2 times 2 is 4, and we did not have multiples on the inside, so it's just square root of 7. And I want you to realize it's written like this. So I'm going to write it right here, 4 square root 7. So that means that A is what's in front, which is 4, and B is what's inside, which is 7. Okay, so let's look at number 2. And this is my show work, because this is a show work problem in our test. So that is your work right there. Okay, let's look at number 2. 2 says given function g is defined by g of x equals x squared plus 6x plus 1. And then it says, what are the solutions to g of x equals 0? Well, I want you to realize all of our solutions are written in a square root method. So there's multiple things we can do. We can do completing the square. We can do, what else? We can do quadratic formula. So that's what I'm going to do. So I have negative b plus or minus. I'm going to build my skeleton. Square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c. And remember, you don't have to memorize this. It's on your formula chart. So 2a. And I'm going to find my a, b, and c because it's already set equal to 0. So a equals 1, b equals 6, c equals 1. So b is 6, a is 1, c is 1. Now the big thing to remember here is that we simplify our 3 pieces. So this piece becomes negative 6 plus or minus. My denominator is 2 times 1, which is 2. And I'm just going to type the discriminant, which is what's inside the house. So 6 squared. So you'll notice I did not type the square root. I just started at the parentheses 6 minus 4 times a times c. And that gives me 32. So I have the square root of 32. Okay, well, we can always check our square root, which I see in my answer choices that obviously it's not going to be a perfect square because square root of 32 is an ugly decimal. So we are going to factor tree it. So 32 is 2 and 16, which is 2 and 8, which is 2 and 4, which is 2 and 2. Had to kind of go sideways. Pair 2, 2 left over. So this becomes negative 6 plus or minus 4 because 2 times 2, square root of 2, which is my leftover, over 2. Well, all of them have square roots of 2, so that doesn't really benefit me to simplify from there. So knowing that, okay, I need to simplify. So we can do the heart. I heart math. So this simplifies to negative 3 plus or minus. This simplifies to 2. Remember, you cannot simplify inside the house, only numbers outside. And there is my answer. Okay, so I have negative 3 plus 2 square root of 2, negative 3 minus 2 square root of 2, which is right here at C. Now, one other method you could have done. I'm going to show my work on this side this time. Okay, here's that if you need it. Okay, another method we could have done is typing it in the calculator, so we can check it. So we have x squared, okay, plus 6x plus 1. And we'll get this, and I see it touches here and here, and I have ugly decimals. Well, we can type in our answer choices. So we have negative 1 square root 2, and I see 1.41, which is neither of those, so that's not my answer. Okay, I'm just typing in one of them. 6 minus 2 square root 2. Okay, and I get 3.17, which again is not one of my options. So the way you would show work for this is you could write what it equals, 3.17, and I could write x equals 0, negative 0, goodness gracious, negative 0.172, and x equals negative 5.828, and we can draw our graph, which looks like this. Okay, and then you can write what your decimals are and see which one matches. So that is another method which would work. So watch, if I check my right answer, I get negative 3 minus 2 squared root of 2, well, negative 5.828. Well, look, that's the same thing. So that is one answer, so on and so forth. Okay, let's look at number 3. So number 3 says Mr. Turner was asked to answer the following equation using the quadratic formula, x squared equals minus 5x equals 1. So we have x squared minus 5x equals 1. And you'll notice they plugged it into quadratic formula. So we're going to go ahead and use quadratic formula because we're only missing this, the inside of the house. So I have to get it equal to 0. So I'm going to do minus 1, minus 1. So I get x squared minus 5x minus 1 equals 0. And I'm going to identify my A, B, C. So A is 1, B is negative 5, C is negative 1, and I'm going to plug it in. Okay, so A is 1, B is negative 5, and C is negative 1. Okay, so I want you to realize 2 negatives makes A positive, which is what they had. Plus or minus 2 times 1 is 2, and I just need to know what's inside the house, the discriminant. So parentheses, negative 5, parentheses, squared. And just know if you do not use parentheses here, you will get the wrong answer. Minus 4 times 1 times negative 1. So I get 29. So it only wants the question mark, which is 29. Okay, number 4 is also a show work. So what is the negative solution to the following equation? We have this. So first things first, we can try to do it calculator method. See what happens. So let's type the left side. So let's try y equals, and see what happens. Okay, so we get y equals 4x squared minus 6. And then we get y equals negative 2x. Okay, and we get, they're not ugly decimals, so we can use them. Okay, so we get x equals negative 1.5 and x equals 1. Now, I also, if you're going to use calculator method, I think you should sketch it. Looks like this, and then like this. I didn't draw the best, but you get what I'm saying. Okay, so knowing that, it says it wants the negative solution. Well, this is positive, so that's not my answer. And we want fractions, so negative 1.5. So I can click this, and it's negative 3 over 2. Okay, so those are all the show work problems. Now, that doesn't mean that we're done showing work. You still will probably have to show work. Okay, so this says, which of the following best represents the solution set of y equals 0, f of x equals 0? So remember, if you aren't sure what f of x equals 0 looks like, you can type it in. So look, it's a green line all the way across your x-axis. So it's this right here. So it wants to know this point and this point. Well, let's look. So negative 3, that could be that. But 0 is the origin, and that's not what that did. This is negative 3, positive 1. That could be it. 0 and 1 are not it. And then negative 5, positive 5 are not it. So B would be my answer. You're just guesstimating. Okay, let's look at number 6. Number 6 says, Melissa is solving the quadratic equation by completing the square. What number needs to be added to both sides? So remember, when we're completing the square, we rewrite it. We want all of our x's on one side, our c value on the other. And we also want to write this piece because that's the completing the square piece. We always have an x. So remember, we half it. our b term, and that gives me negative 6. Then we square it. Probably wrote that in the worst spot. And if we need to remember, we always use parentheses for negatives. We get 36, and then we add it. So it says what number would need to be added to both sides of the equation to complete the square, and it is 36. We don't even have to keep going. Okay, 7 says using the method of completing the square, rewrite this. So first things first, remember we want a and b, we want our values with x on the left and our number without x on the right. So we're going to do minus 4. So we get x squared plus 6x equals negative 4. So now that it's set up, we're going to rewrite it kind of like this. So x squared plus 6x plus what equals negative 4 plus what? And then this is our completing the square piece. So x. So remember, we half it. So half of positive 6 is positive 3. We square it. 3 squared is 9. We add it. And so negative 4 plus 9 is 5. This is my answer. So x plus 3, those are plus 6, so those are wrong, equals 5 is D. Okay. Number 8 says, what are the solutions to the equation? Well, if it's asking me solution and it's not telling me how to do it, I'm going to start with the calculator to make my life easy. So I'm going to write y equals 4x squared minus 5x, not plus 6, and then y equals 0. And I want to see where those two things touch. Well, do they ever touch? No. And if you need to change the color to help you out. I hate when it uses basic color that's like the line. So here we see the blue and the green never touch. Therefore, there is no solution or no real solution. Okay. And just a reminder, if we graphed it, never touch. Okay. Because when it equals 0, remember we're just looking for x-intercepts. Okay, let's look at number 9. Okay, number 9 says the length of a rectangular garden is 4 less than the width. Well, 4 less is going to be minus 4. So we know the length is equal to the width minus 4. And it doesn't tell me the width, so I'm just going to assume the width is the width. And we know that it equals 77. So it says the area equals, so area equals length times width. Well, area is 77 equals length, which is w minus 4, times width, which is w, which again you can write backwards. So B is my answer. Look at number 10. 10 says the equation here represents the area of a triangle where h is the height. What is the reasonable height of the triangle in feet? So let's type it in. Let's use a calculator. Y equals. Let's see what it equals. So we have, I'm going to use x instead of h. Minus 3x. And then the other side of y equals 40. And we're going to scroll till we see the two lines, and here they are. So we have negative 5 and positive 8. Well, read your question. It's a word problem. What is the reasonable height of a triangle in feet? Well, is there such thing as negative heights? No. So I can cross off this one, and I realize x equals positive 8, so it's A. Okay, 11, it wants to know the value. So it's plugged in for me. And the biggest thing to remember is never use this one because remember it's opposite. So inside the house is back, B, A, C. So my B is negative 2, A is 1, C is negative 15. Because remember the first one is negative B, so that's why it's opposite. Okay, let's look at number 12. 12 says circle the work, or Michelle worked out a problem 4 different ways and isn't sure which one is correct. Circle the correct one. Well, she's doing the square root method. So you'll notice she took the square root of both sides. which she did on all of them. So step 1 on all of them is correct. Wow, when you take the square root cancels the square and you get x minus 3 equals square root of 20, which all of them have. So again, step 2 is correct for all of them. Now, the big thing to remember, I'm going to kind of come over here and show y'all. We know that right now we're at x minus 3 equals square root of 20. When I take the square root here, I have to do a positive and a negative. And if we break down 20, we get 2 and 10, 2 and 5. So 2 square root of 5. Well, which one has a positive and a negative? 2 square root of 5 is this one. This has 4 square root of 5, which is wrong. This only has negative, which is wrong, and this only has positive, which is wrong. So this one has to be my right answer. Okay, let's look at number 13. Solve the following equation for B. Well, if we want to find B, that means we need to get rid of the 5. So we have to get what's squared alone. So divide both sides by 5. We're doing the square root method. We have to get what's squared alone. So we get B squared equals C over 5. And now how do I get rid of a squared? I square root it because that's the opposite. So square root cancels the squared. I get B equals positive and negative, and that doesn't simplify. So C over 5. You're just rearranging. Okay, 14 says a firework is launched from the top of a hill 80 feet above the lake at a speed of 65 seconds. Well, feet per second. The rocket's height above the surface of the lake is given by this, where t in seconds. How long will it take the rocket to reach a height of 60 feet? We want to know when this is a height, so equals 60. I think this might be wrong. That's my bad. I think it's 64. Whoops. Okay, but it's fine. The equation's still right. Okay, remember, those are just telling you where these numbers came from. So that's why we don't need to look at those numbers. We only need to know what it's asking for. And if it said when does the rocket hit the ground, we would say equals 0, but we want to know this. So I'm going to just use the calculator. Y equals. Don't type this piece. So we have y equals negative 16. And again, remember, I told you I'm going to use x plus 64x plus 80. And then equals 60. Well, here's my two answers. I have a negative answer and a positive answer. Well, is there ever such thing as a negative height? No. So I don't even want to look at my negative answer. Therefore, 4.291 is my answer. If it doesn't tell you what to round to, I'm going to round to the hundredth place. So 4.29 instead of how long. So the answer is time, which is seconds. There we go. Okay, look at number 15. 15 says a golf ball is hit into the air with an initial upward velocity of 33 meters per second. Here's the equation. Height is h, t is time. When will the golf ball be 29 meters above ground? So we know negative 5t squared plus 33t equals 29. However, I need it to equal 0 if I'm using quadratic formula because that's the only option I'm given. So I know negative 5t squared plus 33t minus 29 equals 0. And I'm going to find my a, b, c. So a is negative 5, b is 33, and c is negative 29. And I'm going to plug it in myself, or I could even look. So remember, this is negative b, and we have positive 33, so I know it's going to be negative 33. So this is wrong. And remember, we B, A, C. So B is 33, A is negative 5, C is negative 29. That one inside the house works. B is 33, A is negative 5, C is negative 29. This is a positive, so that one's wrong. Here, 33, negative 5, negative 29. This one is correct. And now the only other thing to correct or look at is A in the bottom. A is negative 5. That's a positive 5. That's a negative 5. So D is my answer. Number 16 says plug the equation into the quadratic formula. Do not solve. So it just wants us to plug it in. So negative b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2a. Remember, you don't have to memorize this. It is given to you on the formula chart. So it's already equal to 0, so I know a equals 2, b equals -5, c equals -1. So b is -5, b is -5, a is 2, c is -1. There you go. Okay, number 17 says Coach Brown correctly solved a quadratic equation using the quadratic formula. His solution is -5 plus or minus square root of 73 over 2. Which two statements are true about the solution? So let's type it in, because I want you to realize there are two solutions because we have a plus and a minus. So let's type it in once with a plus. Always easier to hit divide first, not that one. Okay, so we have -5 plus the square root of 73 over 2. And then I'm going to type it again because I want to see both. So divide -5 minus the square root of 73 over 2. So we type the exact same thing, once with a plus, once with a minus. And I have those two answers. So looking at those, I'm going to answer my question. It says the equation has no real solutions. Well, positive 1.7 and negative 6.7 are real answers, so that's not true. The equation has exactly one solution. Well, again, I see 2, so that's wrong. The equation has a real solution between the numbers -1 and 0. So my negative answer is this one, and that's not between -1 and 0, so that's wrong. It says the equation has, sorry, a real solution between 1 and 2. Well, 1.7 does fall between 1 and 2, so that is true. And the equation has a real solution between -6 and -7. That falls between -6 and -7, so that is true. D and E are your answer. Okay, let's look at number 18. 18 says, what is the solution to the equation? And it gives me this. Well, we can use a calculator. Y equals, see where they touch. So let's type it. Ugh, I don't know what I just did. X plus 7. Okay, there's the left side. So then we type the right side. Y equals -7x minus 6, parentheses, x minus 2. And I'm going to see where they touch. So remember, x is always our answer. X equals, x equals, x equals, x equals. So I get x equals -1.235. Well, my answers are not written like that. I need to see what that equals. So if I type -1.235, it does give me the option, but none of those are them. So what that means is the calculator rounded it. So we need to figure out which one is equal to that. So we're going to type 45 divided by 17. And that equals 2.6. That's not right. First off, we need a negative, so let's cross off our two positives. So if I put a negative in front of this, it's still wrong. So that's not my answer. So B should be my answer. Let's double check, make sure we did it right. -21 divided by 17. It might help if I click divide. Oh my goodness, if I can type it. And there is my answer. It matches. So that is it. Okay, let's look at number 19. It says, what statement about this is true? So let's type it in. Let's look at it. So we have f of x equals 4 parentheses 1.94 close parentheses all to the x power. So this is what it looks like. Okay, so it says the y-intercept is 1.94. Well, if I click my y-intercept is 4, so that's wrong. Okay. The graph is decreasing. Well, from left to right, like you're reading a book, this is increasing. It's going up. So this is wrong because it's increasing. Okay, the x-intercept is 4. Well, right here at 4, I can't even click on it. It never actually touches the x-axis. So there is no that. And remember, the graph has a horizontal asymptote. Well, it says y equals 0. Let's type it y equals 0. And I can't find where they touch because there's no dots. See how we get dots when they touch or when they touch anything important? So it's not, so therefore that is my answer. Remember, it looks like it turns into the asymptote. All right, good luck.